Hey, Ray. So we're set up to the front. Just like Jake, you'll have a minute to a minute and a half to just give a quick opening statement, a little bit who you are, why you're interested in the judicial board position, and if you want.
So my name is Rachel Beta. I'm a second-year economics major and philosophy minor with the intention of going to law school and pursuing a legal career. I am the president-elect of Sigma Alpha Epsilon Pi, a dedicated student, and am currently the law clerk on Judicial Board. I would like to be a justice not only because I am passionate about the law, but also because I see it as an opportunity to serve my student body by upholding our Constitution and bylaws. I've had several legal internships in the past that have made me familiar with the language of the law, and I am comfortable interpreting and analyzing it. As a justice, I plan to use my analytical thinking skills and comprehension of legal diction to contribute to the deliberation of cases and help Judicial Board uphold the Constitution and bylaws with excellence and integrity.
Great. Are there questions for Rachel today? Yeah, Fadia?
Hi. So given that you are a Jewish student and very active in the Jewish community and still at SA5, and given that recently the Type 1 Judicial Board and the mess has been surrounding cases of conflict of interest, how do you see yourself being able to maintain an unbiased view as your position?
So I'm actually going to cut off that question before you even answer it. I don't know that it's necessarily appropriate to draw in just because of somebody's affiliation that they're
on the Judicial Board, this is kind of this position.
That they're have any sort of bias. I don't think that it's necessarily an appropriate question. If the council as a whole feels that is an appropriate question to assume someone's positions or someone's biases because of the fact that they're a member of a community, I'm fine with allowing the question to go through, but I don't think that that's a question that we would feel comfortable asking other students when we brought them to this position. So I guess I'm wondering what the council thinks, if that question is a appropriate question.
I maybe, if possible, I could rephrase the question. So, given that the recent Judicial Board cases dealt with conflict of interest and your affiliations with student groups on campus, in particular way in terms of politics, how would you be able to keep an unbiased kind of view in terms of your proceeding with Judicial Board?
Definitely. So I think that anyone who is qualified to be a candidate at Judicial Board is likely to be someone who's a really critical thinker and is likely to have opinions on campus matters, but that's not what Judicial Board is about. Judicial Board is about ensuring compliance with the laws that we have written down, and that's really not a matter of opinion. That being said, if I ever did feel like I had invested interest in the outcome of the decision and did not feel like I could be unbiased, I would remove myself from the deliberation and vote, but I do not feel like that will be an issue.
Thank you very much.
This is like a super general question, but what to you, I guess, like constitutes a conflict of interest?
So like I just said, I think it's when you have an invested interest in the outcome of a decision.
As
a current law clerk, what are some perspectives or some things you've noticed with current judicial members that you'd like to improve on next year or in the future?
So to be quite honest, I've only been law clerk for less than a quarter, and we haven't really had any cases come through Judicial Board since I've been law clerk. So I haven't had that much experience in Judicial Board, but what I have seen is that we're supposed to have bi-weekly meetings just to kind of catch everybody up on what's going on. And those tend to get canceled a lot for midterms and other commitments, and I think it's really important to actually stay with the schedule.
Have you been able to be in contact with former members of the Judicial Board and like current members to kind of like gauge what it's like and what do you think about their experience and how you can also bring yourself into that environment and exhibit your uniqueness. Sorry, that was very weird.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I am currently law clerk, so I did go through an interview process with Matt Claudiati that current Chief Justice. So he told me about his experience on the judicial board, how it's really rewarding to both be doing something that he does enjoy and also serves the student body, which is how I feel about the position too. As someone who really does want to go into law and could read the Constitution and find it totally interesting. I'm also friends with Jason Schafter, who's on judicial board, and also is planning on pursuing a legal career, and he's telling me that he thinks it's been a great experience for him and has really helped prepare him for law school now that he's graduating senior. And I hope that he'll do the same thing as well.
Are there additional questions for Rachel?
I was reading your response on what you want to accomplish during your tenure. Can you elaborate more on that?
Okay, so I mean, like I've said several times, my basic goal is to just, ensure compliance with the laws that we already have written. I think that is the main job of justices. It's not necessarily to make any big sweeping changes. I like that how some of the past cases we've had since I've been here, for example, the conflict of interest case with especially versus studies Moore and Rogers, I think that really did set a precedent for what conflict of interest means. And I think that was a really great thing the Judicial Board did, because in the future now it'll be easier to decide cases like that. So I hope that we can continue to set precedents and make it more clear what the wording of the Constitution means.
Do you have any sort of like language that you would think would necessarily be in the realm of being changed or anything like that?
That was fine.
Are there additional questions for Rachel? Morris?
I just wanted to say, as someone who went through this whole interview process, I commend you. And as someone who does want to pursue a career in law, again, I commend you. Very taxing things, but in your application, you did actually mention that you had a lot of friends who are involved in UCLA. So granted, aside from the things that you do have listed in your application and your resume, I was just wondering, do you see yourself as having any certain specific political affiliations that might in any way constitute that sort of conflict of interest that you were just defining?
Definitely not. I definitely think by the issue and don't affiliate myself with any.
Are there additional questions for Rachel? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to let Rachel just give a closing statement, 30 seconds, and then however you want that.
Well, again, I would just like to thank you for your time and consideration, and if you do choose me, I really will put my dedication into this position and do the best that I can.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there a discussion regarding Rachel?
Okay, so my issue is, I'm gonna be upfront about it. I think she's clearly great. She's smart. She's knows her stuff. She's probably gonna be a really great lawyer. But I'm not gonna pretend and sit here that this isn't about freaking conflict of interest case when it is every time. We put up these appointments, and I feel like we should be working on a way to make sure that we make things better in USAC, and we have a legacy that is not constantly being more divisive towards things. And I just think that this is a super political move, and that really bugs me. And that's how I see it. I can't separate it. I'm sorry. I can't. It's not it's not her fault. It's she's part of the community, and that's fine. But she's part of a community that is very invested in USAC and in very specific outcomes that judicial boards make decisions on every year. And I can't separate those two from being not together. And even if she is talented, even if she would be the right person for the job, I just don't see it as a feasible thing to appoint someone on my side that would that would be missed.
Is there additional discussion? Rachel? Rosa?
I don't think it's fair to assume just because someone's part of the community, they're not someone who should be put in a situation. I think it's not fair to say because she's Jewish, she's done it before. And I know that's not exactly what you're saying, that's how I'm perceiving it, that's how it's not to. Personally, I think she's a very qualified candidate with her resume. I think she did an amazing job. I think she has experience. She's also worked for outside lawyers, so she's experienced working outside of UCLA, outside of USAC, and bring this to time.
So I guess I'll mention, because I guess this is sort of your criticism sort of pointed at me, because I'm the one who gets to appoint these people. So my question, for me, I look at every appointment from the perspective of what the obligations are, right? And who do I believe is going to do a great job? And Rachel sent in her application, and she's gotten like 2 law clerk internships. She's interested, she's pre-law. Another thing that I thought I took integration was the fact that she's a sophomore. Justices stay for the whole term, and there's nothing wrong with appointing a 3rd year or 4th year, but it makes it more difficult because you need to constantly reappoint people all the time. So one thing that I was looking for in a candidate was somebody who was younger, who was going to be able to be around for a longer period of time. And you know, quite frankly, I'm extremely disappointed in your comments that you wouldn't be able to look at me and allow me, just the way that you allowed Kevin, to appoint these people and not assume that everything that he was doing was politically motivated. I'm very disappointed that you couldn't look at me and look at my appointments and allow me to appoint people that I think are great without looking at me politically. But that's nice.
I just wanted to ask I just really had a question for ARC, and I wanted to see if you could help clarify. The only point I want to say, unclarity isn't the word, confusion that I have is specifically with your definition of conflict of interest, because the term invested interest to me was a little vague. And granted, she's still a sophomore. I'm not trying to in any way attack her, and I'm just trying to really understand, when you had your interview with her, did she give a more detailed description of what she thought constituted that? And I mean, I hate to say it, but yes, the majority of jailboard cases really do revolve around that. So I feel like we need to see if she knows, she has a detailed understanding of what that term really means. You know?
So before leaving that, Heather, or can you answer it? So that's actually the term used by the judicial board decision. Mm-hmm. The judicial board decision that they decided in that case is, I think it's just a general conflict of interest definition, is the vested interest in the outcome of the case.
Yes.
So,
But
I'll let Heather answer.
Sorry, go ahead.
Right, so when we asked her, what does conflict of interest mean to you? She responded, what a specific invested interest in the outcome of decision. She gave an example, if your best friend was elected and by reviewing a case and rendering election void, that would be a conflict of interest. So she put herself in that position. And when we made the recommendation of we need to explain the definition of conflict of interest as it pertains to case, it was to separate herself from the cases that are being presented to her, and we wanted an answer that was what she would be deciding is the conflict of interest in the case that was presented to her.
Anybody else that want to chime in?
You basically said it. She had a really short definition just now, and she gave a kind of example when we interviewed her in ARC, and she understands what it is. I think we were looking for her to point to a previous case specifically, and she invented a situation which would be a conflict of interest, a hypothetical situation, but I think she understands what it is and would recuse herself if something like that came up.
So just for clarity, I'm not pro at J-Board. So if someone did find themselves in a conflict of interest, do they step down? How does that go?
They recuse themselves.
So they
Yeah.
Okay.
Supreme Court justices.
You said what?
I said the Supreme Court justices do sometimes too.
Okay.
So yes, there's no oversight over a decision that if J-Board makes a decision, is there any kind of appeal process if people disagree with the decision, or is it just they accept and that's it?
I'm actually not sure about that. Do you know if there's an appeals process for J-Board? No, it's a good question. I believe there may be sorry? In my understanding, I think there is counsel with a 3/4 vote can potentially overrule what they do. I think, but that's
definitely a checks and balances.
Oh, sorry.
I really admire that she has so much experience. As also somebody who's potentially going to law school. No. We'll see about those applications. But I don't know, it's like a matter of having friends in USAC and being exposed to this like politics, and then a matter of being exposed to, I don't know, for some reason I'm not necessarily 100% comfortable. I don't know why, but like maybe I'll just go through her application again as I'm sitting here, and I'm going through it constantly, but I definitely can see that she's qualified for sure. I'm just worried about political affiliations, obviously, because I wouldn't necessarily have somebody who has like lots of friends in either or slates be a Prince J board in the first place, but I definitely feel her like genuine like desire to be part of J board. So I'm a little, I just want to be transparent, I'm a little confused right now, so I'm gonna just.
Okay, is there additional discussion? I can also entertain a motion at any time. Heather Rosen.
And I'm going to approve Rachel Beta to the judicial board.
Okay. Second by Horniman. All those in favor of approving Rachel Beta to the position of judicial board, please raise your right hand. 4. Okay. All those who oppose? 4. Okay. All those who abstain?
Sorry, I just wanted to look over application more.
Yeah.
I was like, was it right?
So, when there's a motion and there's a second, we go straight into a vote. I asked if there was additional discussion. If there needed to be a recess, we could have taken one.
Okay.
Sorry. So, there's 4, 1, and 1 extension as of right now. So that's a tie. I never thought I'd have to do this.
Could we not?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Recess,
not, because I was saying, like, I was abstaining, I didn't feel comfortable voting it because I was at a point where I felt like I could say yes, no. And I don't want to abstain when we
Okay.
have all this material in front of me.
Great. Okay. So, given that you're guessing anyways, we'll stop the vote. We don't need to take a vote right now. And I guess we'll give you all like a minute to look over everything.
Can I suggest a 5-minute recess for people to look through it, not to check their email, not to check their Facebook, not to go down to
Yeah.
So you can call for 5 minutes.
No, I can't do anything.
I call for a 5-minute recess.
Just sit there, please.
All those in favor? Thank you.
I have a hard copy of someone with a hard.
Sure.
The only thing the bylaws mentions is that the 3/4 majority of council can appeal a judicial decision. That's what it says.
Is there anything mentioned about affiliation? Like, is there any kind of like, because if it's not, then like technically she's like, yeah, she's in full right to be, but is there any sort of mention of like affiliations of any particular, I think.
Because she said she didn't have it.
Judicial board. I mean, I guess I'll talk for like a second, and that's, right, what I'm seeing right now is someone potentially being denied a position because they're Jewish. That's literally why they're potentially being denied a position. I've seen no other reasoning. She's a great candidate, obviously. She's did incredibly well at ARC, she did incredibly well at council. She literally knows everything. She had a fair interview, just like everybody else, and she's fantastic. And so I'm extremely disappointed right now, but I'm ready to continue the conversation.
Can I comment that? It's not, the issue isn't that she's Jewish, the issue is that like the cases that keep coming are always about like with regards to certain communities, and it is kind of like, it's just, obviously it's like the way that it says that that's terrible, like you can't, like I would never deny someone something because they're Jewish or because of part of their identity, but like with this specific case, like these are the cases we see every year, and this appointment is going to go for years, and like I understand the political significance of like this J-board position, and like I don't want it to become like a, oh, like this is because she's Jewish and you're anti-Semitic thing. That's not what it is at all. But like,
Okay, further discussion?
I think that her affiliations with Jewish communities and Jewish organizations here on campus aren't going to affect her decisions that she makes as a judicial board member. And I think that it is the job of a judicial board member to be unbiased. And she fully recognizes that. And she said that in her interview as well, that her job is to be unbiased and to make decisions according to the bylaws and the Constitution that govern USAC. And that is what she's doing.
Just the only thing for me is that this particular position, there's like so much, I guess, contentiousness around it. It's just because of the fact that you are supposed to like, be non-political in this particular position. And I think exactly, it has nothing to do with the fact that you're Jewish. It's just the fact that it's so that you have to somehow maintain a neutral stance. And naturally, when you kind of like, you're at UCLA, you surround yourself with certain people. And you surround yourself with certain community, you surround yourself with certain, I guess, even especially if you know a bunch of music, you go to UCLA, or you're in Florida. And so, I don't know, it's just, yeah, I'm ready.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Just looking at the Supreme Court, looking at these Supreme Court justices, they have their own political affiliation, they do have their own beliefs on certain things. We keep saying it's because she's not part of a certain community, that means you aren't affiliated with her being Jewish. And that is not fair, and that is not what the state should be doing. And I encourage you all, if you really don't think she's a qualified candidate, okay, come up with a reason why you don't think she's a qualified candidate, not because of her identity. That is not right. Rachel passed through ARC with a 3-0-0 vote. I was in that room, Greg was in that room, Savannah was in that room. I'm not Jewish. And they passed through with a unanimous vote.
but this is like politics. This is like politics, and that's what it is. Like, and that's what's so hard because she like. It's just, this is supposed to be an unbiased position, making decisions on keeping us accountable and us in check, and we are not good at keeping in check because clearly we're keeping both of the J-board cases against conflicts of interest. And I would like to know that the people who are keeping the future council members in check, are going to make sure that we try and steer, and get right back on the correct path of making it less about state politics and really trying to leave a legacy that's actually about trying to make UCLA better and move away from constant state politics. And I'll say that in an eloquent way, I can't.
Lori?
So, almost everyone at this table is affiliated with the slate, including the president who makes appointments. Would that mean that any appointment made by any president from any slate would automatically be considered slate politics and have an automatic conflict of interest? I mean, that's the logical, if you follow that train logically down the track, that's where you're going. If this person had been, say, involved in running for office on a slate, or running someone's campaign, clearly that's very partisan. I don't know the fact, I don't know this person. I don't know what she's done in her past. Possible some of you asked her that during your interviews, or you know that. I don't. But, I mean, if it's gotten to a point where nobody can be appointed for anything, if they have an opinion about controversial issues, that's pretty bad. Or if they are identified with an ethnicity that has anything to do with any of the many worldwide conflicts we face, you're going to have nobody to appoint to any position anywhere on this campus. So,
What is she talking about?
so, you know, unless, I mean, if people want to vote against her because they don't like her, something makes, there's some reason or discomfort, I think that's totally legitimate. Or for any other reason, that seems legitimate. But this is really, really disturbing track that we're going down right now.
Is there much?
Yeah, out of curiosity, did Judicial Board like recommend any particular, I guess, candidates to me? I felt like I sort of didn't like very comfortable with the Judicial Board themselves, just because of the nature of this position has brought forth members of the
The Judicial Board hasn't recommended anybody to me, but one thing that she's currently the law clerk right now. So my understanding what the law clerk does is if there's a case, they like type it out, they take the notes at the meetings, well, you know, that kind of stuff. So she's actually, in a weird way, she's like already a member of the Judicial Board, not as a justice position, but as a law clerk. So Judicial Board has not recommended anybody to me, but I take the fact that she is currently the law clerk and she's been interviewed by the Chief Justice as a positive sign that she's somebody that can work really well with the Judicial Board, and somebody that has sort of her seal of approval.
So just to kind of elaborate on the point that you just made, the law clerk themselves is actually not allowed in closed sessions where like the J Board is actually having their discussions and internal like conversations on how they're going to decide. The law clerk themselves basically helps a lot with research, which I feel like she's been great in the recorder. She sounds amazing. Specifically with regards to your point about what was defined as a conflict of interest, the rules, the like guiding documents of J-Board themselves has no definition for it because they have the guiding rules like how it's supposed to run. There aren't any like definitions, so you have to go to court precedents. And in all precedents, they always refer to conflict of interest and basically reference the USAC bylaw definition of it. So in a weird sort of way, J-Board actually kind of does use the USAC bylaw definition of conflict of interest. And in the bylaws, it has literally divided loyalty or even the appearance of divided loyalty. That, apparently there is an appearance of divided loyalty if people feel that a conflict of interest has been constituted. And I feel like also the fact that she kept giving vague answers when a simple legal analysis and research into it could actually show that, like, she could actually say, well, you know the conflict of interest because these are the bylaws that you live with, essentially. Kind of shows me that maybe she hasn't done the right homework. Because I feel like an invested interest is not what the USAC bylaws say. I would have just liked if she, again, I'm not voting member, but I feel like it would have been much better if, when asking these conflict of interest questions, she gave us the definition that is the honest truth. That's what I'm saying. I'm not implying that she's lying, and I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying she could have given a better answer when asked the conflict of interest question. That was literally my point.
Okay, maybe we can have Deb comment on what perception of conflict of interest means.
Conflict, the definition that you all voted on is not a legal definition of conflict of interest. It's language that several years ago council put together. A legal conflict of interest is not about perception. It's about reality. So there's a difference between what conflict of interest is, what any individual might believe conflict of interest is, and what the USAC current language on conflict of interest is. If the question is, what is USAC's current definition of conflict of interest, then yes, the current definition is what was put into your guiding documents a few years ago. Whether that's the best or not, that's for you all to decide. And if it's not, you change it. And if it is, you continue to use it. But as I heard the question asked of her was what conflict of interest means to her, not what is USAC's current definition of conflict of interest. If that's a question that you wanted to ask her, it's a fair question to see if she's familiar with what you have in your documents. The idea of perception, there's a significant difference between what might be perceived and what's real. And I don't know that there is a single student in this campus community you could appoint to anything where somebody wouldn't have a perceived conflict. And that would apply to all of you as well. It does not mean any of you or any of the other tens of thousands of students on this campus actually has a conflict. Because perception is in the eyes of the third party, not of the person who's going to be counted on in whatever position you're electing or appointing someone to follow the Constitution, the bylaws, the guiding documents that you have set out. I'm struck by what I'm hearing is the presupposition that specific issues are going to land in front of J Board. None of us has the crystal ball to know what J Board is going to be asked to rule on today, tomorrow, next month, next year, or 3 years from now. So to figure out what are the full spectrum of issues that might come in front of someone and see if that person has a conflict. There is language that talks about recusal. If there is an issue that the person has a genuine conflict in, they would need to not be part of the deliberation and the voting and the decision making on that issue. I heard you ask the question about whether J Board has any recommendations. Are not the clerks actually selected by the members of J Board? So if the thinking is that they would feel comfortable enough that someone doesn't have a conflict to support them, but think that that person would have a conflict to vote among them, I don't know. I don't know how much more of a recommendation you can get than someone that was selected not by your president or a prior president, but actually by the J Boards to be amongst them. From my perspective, as long as there's a recusal language, and at any point there is an issue that goes to J Board votes, and USAC believes that someone should have recused themselves who didn't, you have the ability to override a J Board decision. That is in your documents as well. So that's your way to say, we believe that there was a conflict, and that had this person who voted not voted, it would have been a different outcome, and therefore we're going to take a vote to override. So you do have those checks and balances.
Yeah. You still want to add, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify something when I did make my comment. With regards to the legality of the conflict of interest that I was mentioning, the sole fact remains that in the publishing of all the decisions regarding conflict of interest, J Board has always said, as defined by USA Bylaws Article 1, Section D. By default, precedent makes these very bylaws and that very definition the governing documents and the governing definitions that all J Board games have to use, including that perception clause that actually USAC uses. I'm not trying to in any way project or I'm not Nostradamus, I cannot predict what cases are gonna come up. But that was essentially what I was saying, that in her repeated conversations, because, I mean, if ARC asked her what conflict of interest meant, I feel like she would kind of know the conversation would come up here. I would just like her to elaborate a little more. That was literally what my comment was, that I would just appreciate it if she understood the message. But that is not in any way like something serious. You just should elaborate it.
The question you asked about appearance, the decision that J Board issued in the case that was a conflict of interest case, they actually wrote their last sentence in here says the appearance of a conflict of interest is not sufficient to prove a conflict of interest. And that was what led to some discussion that never went past discussion about whether in fact the documents and the definition needed to be changed, since J Board did not, in that conflict of interest case, accept appearance of conflict as a valid part of deciding. And such why I can't tell you what is or isn't. I can only tell you what you have in your documents. At this point, you've got a definition that includes appearance of conflict, and you have a J Board ruling that discredited at that moment in time that part of your definition, but the definition still stands.
Thank you, Deb. I haven't known if I missed anything.
Okay, so just, I guess, where I'm at. So I think that I'm going to, on Google, because she's qualified and she is, like, she wants to be a lawyer, and we need powerful women who are strong and intelligent like her, to be in high places. And based on the fact that, you know, if there is further down the line a perceived conflict of interest in the conflict of interest case or something, that can be appealed, and based on like the perceived good intentions that she really wants to do a good job and that she cares about making sure that we're held accountable, then I'm good with that.
Is there further discussion? Thank you. I have Greg over there. Thank you.
Well, I'm like going through her application again. I think the only thing that initially made me feel like a little hesitant was just because since many of my friends are involved in USAC, and that was kind of like if I had also, like, one of my friends had been appointed to J Board, and I was her friend, and I was like, oh, you know, that one portion kind of made me threw me a little bit. That being said, I do feel pretty confident that she has the ability to use reason, or lack of a better phrase, to like judge whether or not it is a conflict of interest and whether her involvement is a conflict of interest. And she is more than qualified in terms of like her experiences beyond just UCLA, which obviously as a transfer student is kind of commendable. So with that, I appreciate the further discussion and the further like talking about exactly what our bylaws say. That made me feel a lot more fortunate of where we're headed with this. So with that, I'll be voting.
We have Greg over there.
There's no further discussion. I move to approve Rachel Beta to Judicial Board.
Seconded by Rosen. Is there any objections? Okay. All those in favor of approving Rachel Beta to the Judicial Board, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9. One more time, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Any objections? Any abstention? With a vote of 9-0-0, Rachel Beta is approved to the Judicial Board. We may go get Rachel.
I'll grab that.